Greetings and welcome. My name is Anya Light, and welcome to the very first episode of Cosmic Conversations, a podcast where I speak with healers and creatives and visionaries and learn about how they navigate, explore, and play in our beautiful cosmos. So today, I am absolutely thrilled to have my beautiful guest here with me. She is a dear friend of mine and also a colleague. Her name is Amanda Lynne. She is a Reiki master, a spiritual counselor, a light language channeler. As an awakened light worker and starseed, her mission is to assist folks on the ascension path. Amanda supports brave souls in balancing karma, transmuting lower frequencies, and helping them to align to their higher aspects. She brings forth light codes and universal activation energies to individuals who are ready for the next step in their evolution. So I am thrilled to begin this cosmic conversation with dear Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Anya. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, as always. We have had many a long Skype and Zoom conversations that were not recorded. So this will be fun to get the cameras rolling and see what comes forth. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, okay, when we first met, what drew me to you first? What I guess intrigued me first was your light language work. Coming from, we used to live in the same geographic area, Amanda and I, Northwest Ohio, and there's not a whole ton of folks in this area who do this kind of work. And so I was geeked to finally meet someone in person who was doing light language channeling. And so, Amanda, could you just explain for us what is light language and how did you get involved in that world and speaking it and channeling it?
Yeah, it was a complete and utter surprise for me. At the time it came into my life, I was already well on my spiritual path, and I think I was at a point where I was finally comfortable and confident with who I was spiritually and where I was evolving. And in my head, I thought like, oh, this is the ceiling and I'm happy to be here. But no, because I was drawn to Sedona in August of 2018. Just had a feeling I needed to be there. I needed to go. So I took the family and the RV and, had this wonderful trip. The last night I was there on Lionsgate, I was called to Bell's Rock. It's this beautiful rock formation in the Sedona Valley, and I was there by myself. It was midnight, and I had this incredible experience where an energy approached me, and this was visceral. This was real life, and I was given this light language activation, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to work with it at first. But as I came home and the weeks followed, and I had more dreams, and I had more interactions with this being of light, I'll say. So a couple days after I had gotten home, I'm laying in bed and I'm listening to a meditation in my headphones, and I hear this voice, and it's speaking a different language. It's speaking this language that I had never heard before. And, I remember thinking, I was like, I didn't think this was a guided meditation. And I touched my throat and I realized that the sound was coming from me. This language was coming from me. And it was this very surreal moment because I was kind of in a meditative astral projection, out of body state. So I pulled my earbuds out and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how is this happening, kind of thing. So yeah, it was a couple week process of integrating all of those energies and doing some research and figuring out the activation and figuring out what my next steps were in my spiritual path. And of course, I had my guides there with me explaining things. So yeah, the idea that I was at the ceiling of my spiritual, it went a completely different direction. And yeah, so to answer your question, what is light language? How it's been described to me, it is as if DNA could speak. So those codes, those frequencies in our being, and everybody's got a little bit different of makeup. It's as if those codes could speak. And when you're hearing the codes, there's certain frequencies, vibrations that will target certain things. And what's very interesting to me is there's a lot of individuals doing light language. Okay, certain folks that maybe aren't doing light language yet will be drawn to certain people. So it's kind of this idea of the soul tribe, and then there's over souls. So certain folks will be attracted to my light language, and I guess that's kind of a trickle down pattern, so to speak. So let's see, did that answer your question? I was kind of rambling there a moment.
Does. And so how does it interact or overlap with, let's say, people that are in churches who speak in tongues? Is it related? Is it different?
Absolutely. It's the same thing. So everybody can do light language. Everybody can channel light language. It's their own code. It's their own personal code. It's like being able to show somebody what your aura, what your rainbow body looks like through that language. So everybody's is going to be totally different. And this type of language transcends any human language. It's depending on how you look at it. It's either a very new thing or it's a very old thing. It is the language of source, and everybody's like I said, everybody's makeup and everybody's soul aspects and oversouls and higher self, they're all a little bit different. It's different sides of the prism, so to speak. Or you can imagine a dodecahedron, which is 12 by 12 sides, and it's all of these different layers and levels. So yeah, it is speaking in tongues. Same sort of thing.
Awesome. If someone's hearing this right now and just so intrigued to play around with it a little bit for themselves, would you recommend that they first listen to your YouTube channel, for example, and just hear you do it, multiple different, videos? Or is there a kind of a way that you would recommend they start? I mean, could they just start trying to do it themselves, or do they need like a little bit more intro?
Everybody's different. So the way I start, before I even started speaking light language, I started scribing. And I started with a lot of mandala art. I started with a lot of geometric shapes. And at first it was just fun. It was just something I was called to do. I knew that art was somewhere in there. Like I was supposed to do art somehow, and I didn't know where to start. So, at first I did a lot of tracing. I would trace other people's art, other people's, sacred geometry and like the tree of life, that sort of thing. That migrated into me doing my own shapes and doing my own mandalas, and that migrated into me actually scribing. So, some people may be more drawn to the art at first, and maybe just looking at these pieces is enough to activate those codes and to spark that DNA. Some people may be more attracted to the music, the meditations. It's totally up to the individual, completely up to them.
I love that word codes, because it brings to mind sort of like a nerdy side of me that thinks of sci-fi or just some kind of fantasy movie of we gotta go get the codes, and then if you get the codes, something great happens, or you avert disaster or something. And it's just a good word for me to tune into what you're talking about, having experienced many times your gift that you share. It does feel like a code that unlocks something so deep within me, is just effortlessly, like it clicks into place and it just comes open. I remember last summer when we did the gathering, um, at the time I was leading a retreat center event, and Amanda came in and shared light language with a group of about, I don't know, 8 to 10 women. And the reaction from the room was so intense. A lot of the people had never even heard of light language before, and it was their very first experience, and they were just moved to tears. They were so awakened and enlivened by it. So, and in truth, when we organized the event, I wasn't sure how people would react,
Yeah.
but it was awesome to see everyone there getting so high from it. And so, yeah, I have profound respect for what you do. It is so fun, and just it's so accessible, I think, to everyone. So, yeah. And so what is, Amanda, do you think the role of the channeler or the healer or the light worker in today's time? Why are these things important right now?
They're important right now because we're at a major shifting point. We're at what I call a node point. So there's certain times in our now where little nodes happen. You can think of it musically. Little triggers will happen, and we're at a phase right now where so many people are newly awakened and enlightened, and going through their processes. It's so important that folks that have been doing this for a while and they know somewhere deep down they're to participate, and they may not know how to participate. Yeah, it's just, it's the trickle down effect. It's the pulsating wave effect of, like, we've got to get everybody activated
Mm-hmm.
and in line and charged up
Mm-hmm.
for this shift.
Mm.
Because one of the things, one of the messages that has been pounded into my head since I woke up was nobody left behind.
Yes.
Nobody's getting left behind this time. And I think for anybody who's like feeling the sense of urgency and like, when is this going to happen? It's going to happen when we wake everybody up. Like we're literally waiting for.
Yep.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I really resonate with that. And it feels like the kindest, most compassionate way to look at it, because I know that some spiritual guides have a bit of not everyone sees it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They can almost see it as a war or a battle between those who are awakened and those who are not awakened. And I just don't agree with that. I don't vibrate to that point of view. I really, yeah, we all need to do this together and ascend together
Mm-hmm.
into this new planet. So what do you see in the next 10 or 20 years for planet Earth?
Well, I see a lot of things. I see a lot of different trajectories, and I see a lot of different potential timelines. I'm wired to be more positive, but I'm also a realist. I try not to make too many assumptions about how things are going to go. I do feel, because people ask me this a lot, I get a lot of DMs about this sort of thing. And I skirt the question a lot, quite frankly, just because, the second you put your initials on a timeline, so to speak, you've basically, like, that one's not going to happen anymore. So does that make sense? Like,
It's almost being too cocky.
it's not even that. It's when you put something out there and then people grasp on it, their own ego and their own shadow will be the opposing side to it. So it's like, I could say, free healthcare for everybody in 3 months. And then it would be like, people would be like, that's really, yep, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. But then like their thought forms of negativity are going to start to break and like dissolve that down. So it cancels itself out
Oh, yeah.
energetically.
That's interesting. Okay, so you're more of a prophecy in a general sense of.
Well, yes, also because everybody's reality is different. So it's like, I don't know what your reality, I don't know what Bob's reality is going to be like. I know for sure that mine's going to be awesome though. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to be awesome, but it's going to be great. So
Exactly. I love that. Okay. So you can feel that your future is going to be awesome. Could you help people right now to tune into something like that? Because it is a tough time right now. I mean,
sure.
you and I, we've had our conversations that have been a bit bleak and a bit depressing because we look out the window and we're thinking, what the heck? We've used the word apocalypse at times to describe what's happening. So what would you say to people who are down right now and who are feeling not so optimistic about themselves? How did they get to where you're at?
So it's a lot of surrender. It's a lot of letting go. It's a lot of knowing and just trusting. Like
Mm,
you have to know and trust at the deepest levels of your heart. And it goes back to the node points, right? We all come in with a blueprint. We all come in with a template. And I say this so many times, but I see everything in geometric shapes. So, let's say that you've come in and your shape is a dodecahedron. That's your shape. And whatever you do in your life, like if you live, doesn't matter how long you live or what you do or where you go, but your energy field is gonna make that shape no matter what.
mm,
And you have to hit those node points. So there's certain node points that you have to hit. You have to live in Ohio. Boom, you did that. You have to become a Reiki master. Boom, you did that. The in between, the in between stuff doesn't matter at all. It doesn't
mm,
matter at all. And there's a sense of like, you hear, you don't sweat the small stuff. You can't control any of that small stuff. That small stuff it's a product of, you know, uh, my fear, my anxiety, other people's imposed realities on me, things like I have to pay taxes, that's an imposed reality that I have to adhere by. So basically, yeah, it's just surrendering to what you can't control, knowing that because you're taken care of and your higher self and your guides have your back, you're going to hit all those node points. It might take you way longer than
mm,
than you want to, but like it's going to happen one
mm.
way or another.
I love that. Okay. So how do you discover or can you discover what those future node points are that you're meant to hit? And and then how do you go towards those?
Mm. I think it goes back to a deep knowing. um let's say, for example, somebody who's watching this, who's maybe on the fence about if they want to become spiritual, if they want to become a healer, it's the resonance you feel in your body when you hear it. And it could be anything. It could be a thought that you have of, I feel like I should buy a new vehicle. And you get to learn. It's a process of learning and discernment, and what feels good in my heart. And there's practices you can do, really simple practices, like you can say, while you're in a meditation, you can state your name. I am Amanda. I know that to be true. And you
Mm,
feel that vibration, you feel that resonance in your
mm,
heart. And then you'll say something like, I am Tom. And you're like, no, no, I'm definitely not Tom. So you start to be able to feel those energies. So if somebody has something come up and they read something and they're like, I should do this with my life, if they feel that, then that's a node point. That's something to shoot your arrow at.
Oh, that's so nice. I love that practical suggestion of feeling in your body, saying your name and then saying someone else's name and feeling the difference in that. Because I think some people have difficulty with tuning into what their heart feels or what their body feels or what their intuition is. Because so many people come to me and say, oh my gosh, Anya, I don't have intuition. And or I do, but I it's blocked, or I can't feel it. I can't sense it. And so that's such a great practical tip. Do you have any other tips for helping people to tune into their intuition, to their resonance?
Well, absolutely. Always calling in guides, and for people who, because I hear that too, or people will say to me, "Well, I don't have any guides. I don't have any angels. Nobody's communicating with me," and it's like, are you sure? Are you paying attention? Because that goes back to the idea of just being present, in the now. If you're somebody who's always thinking about, an hour from now I've got to do this, 2 weeks from now I've got to do this, oh, I can't believe what happened a year ago, what a mess. Like if you're living in the future, if you're living in the past, you're not in the now, and you're not going to see those signs and symbols and synchronicities, and you're not going to be able to tune into your intuition, because your intuition doesn't live in the past and the
Mm,
future. It lives in the now. And being present is probably, do you agree that it's maybe the first step in becoming spiritual, is just like
yeah,
owning your own presence in the moment?
yeah, I do. So, great teachers that people can look to for that would be Eckhart Tolle. He's
Mm,
super famous now for a reason, because ex- he he explains in very simple ways how to be present. And that takes, well, it depends. Different people have different time frames. Some people it takes a few months of focusing on that, and some people it takes longer. Yeah, so if anyone's listening to this conversation right now and it's a bit too far out for you, you don't really, you're like, what are they talking about? It sounds nice, but I just don't know. Maybe, yeah, do that basic foundation of being present, of doing practices, mindfulness, um, simple meditation, just focus on your breathing, focus on, make yourself a cup of tea and sit and drink your cup of tea for 10 or 15 minutes and don't do anything else. Don't multitask, don't check your email, don't talk to
mm.
anyone. Just drink your tea. And that, get is a great foundation then for moving into the more intuitive arts and the more far out kind of stuff. Because if you don't have that now moment, you're right. This stuff can seem wacky to people unless they've gone through that process of really grounding themselves in the present moment.
Well, then you have the next step of that, of let's say somebody is is in the process of learning how to be present, and let's say that they're in that moment, and they may see something, they may see a synchronicity, they may see something in their environment that catches their attention, that catches their awareness, and they're like, I wonder if that's a sign. What will always happen is their shadow will come in, their ego will come in and say something like, that's not a sign, that's just a bird, you're
Yep.
dumb.
Yep.
Like there's nobody out here helping you, you're on planet Earth alone. So that's the other step of it. And people need to realize that that voice never stops coming in. like right, Anya, that voice, it's always there. So you have to expect it to come in and
Yeah.
question. So that's when you have to go in your heart and um own that you are worthy, you are divine, um you have a purpose, and you are being looked out for. And the love, like, there's so much love all around the universe for every single person. It's a overwhelming fountain of love. And yeah.
So, okay. So where does that voice come from? That little cranky voice that says, this isn't your intuition. This is just a fantasy, Where does that voice originate from?
um well, I mean, it we wouldn't be growing, we wouldn't be progressing, we wouldn't have a need to stand up and fight and be better if we didn't have that voice. So
Mm.
I mean, that voice, like, it has to be there, because imagine if we didn't have that voice, we just think that the world was perfect and that I don't need to work on myself because I'm perfect. That voice is, it's the yin and the yang, it's the shadow and the light, it's the up and down. I mean, we need it.
So it's, so on the one hand, it can block people from trusting their intuition, but on the other hand, it can be the fuel that helps people to step into their growth. Is that what you're
Yeah, absolutely.
saying?
It's the anchor as well as the rocket fuel. It's both. It's polarity, it's duality. It's where we are, and we couldn't exist here on planet Earth without it, unfortunately. So yeah, I hear, when I first started getting into this, and I read a lot of books about, you have to kill your ego. You have to, destroy your shadow. It's kind of impossible. It's kind of impossible to do that, because if you did that, you'd float off of Earth with wings. I don't know, you wouldn't, like, we need it.
And even the great saints were so quirky and at times ridiculous. I mean, there's the story that I like to share, and I don't know if this is true or not, but maybe it is. Are you familiar with Amma, the hugging saint?
I'm not.
Oh, that's strange that we've never talked about that. Okay, so she is this Indian woman, and she has hugged millions and millions of people. I think over 40 million,
Oh wow,
something like that.
good for
And
her.
her thing, I mean, so people will come from long distances to get a 2-second hug, because her 2-second hug, I mean, so there'll be a line. Sometimes people wait in the line for 24 hours. And to get this 2-second hug, and I've had the honor of getting her hug twice, and it is worth that time spent, because it is literally like an LSD trip of days compacted into 2 seconds. And she has such an incredible, I mean, I don't know what the technical term would be for what her stage of advancement would be, but it is, I mean, just seeing her walk out onto the stage for the first time when I saw her, I instantly just burst into sobs. All this darkness in me just came up, and I was like, ah! And it's just so, but anyway, the story is that one of her former devotees was, I think, in an article, maybe it was in the Rolling Stones, some kind of famous magazine. She had an expose saying that Amma used to yell at her cooks for burning the rice, like yell, like, why is you? And they'd be like, well, if she was enlightened, she wouldn't freak out about something so stupid. And with what you just said, Amanda, I mean, the ego is the anchor to the earth plane. So even if you are very, very awakened, you still have those little weird, like, triggers. For whatever reason, she didn't like burnt rice. I mean, I don't know.
Who does? So
I wasn't there. I can't fully confirm that happened, but just as an example, kind of a thing, So
yeah.
so it kind of makes me feel better when I have my off days, when I'm not so Anya light, I'm like Anya dark, storm cloud, So it's okay.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about being on the earth plane, I wonder if this is a fun question. So are you aware of why you decided to incarnate on the earth in this particular incarnation?
Yeah, I ask myself that a lot. It's honestly, it's to do this. It's to do light language. Light language is kind of my specialty, so to speak. That's what I've been told. I want to go back to what you were when you were talking about the codes. So, and I don't know if I 100% subscribe to this idea, but I think it's the best metaphor that we have to explain our environment is that it's a simulation, right? We know that we live in an electric universe. We know that frequencies and vibrations, we know all of that stuff is real. You can research consciousness, like you can, the Bose experiments where the outcome of an experiment changes upon the observer. Like that's been established, so if you go by that idea that we're living in this, I think of the Matrix, like with the green codes streaming down the so yeah, it's light language is it is that code. It's being able to speak to your environment as well as your energetic body and your emotional body. So that's why I'm here. It's to activate as many people as I can, through my art, through the music, the language itself. So one of the dreams, visions, downloads that I have gotten ever since I was a little kid was this idea of a golden stadium. It's this enormous stadium, and in the middle of the room, there's this gear. There's this massive gear, and it goes back to the idea of the 144,000 in the Bible. So I was not raised religious. Both my parents were not into it at all. So I was drawn to the Bible as a kid, and I think I was probably 10 or 11 when I read the Bible. The one of the quotes that stuck out to me was the 144,000, and later on in that verse it says only the 144,000 can sing this song, and that always like struck me as like, song, what the heck, what song? So that takes me into this dream, this download of the stadium and this massive gear. And I would see all of these different light workers and all of these different individuals, and some of them in human form, some of them more energetic bodies, but they would put their key into a different keyhole, and as each one put their key in the keyhole, the gear would turn and more would put them their keys in. Something happens. So once all of those keys are attached, there's a moment that happens. And what I've kind of, I don't know, put together in my head is that there's a certain, I don't want to say a number because it's not like a quantity that you can actually count, but at a certain point when enough light workers are activated with their code, with their own personal code, it's enough to trigger this event. It's enough to trigger this shift, this consciousness. I mean, this exponential expansion of consciousness. So that's part of my mission, is to activate as many people as I can. So the more people we have singing their song or speaking their code, it's somehow it fills in these gaps, or it not, I don't even see it as gaps. It's just like these missing strands of enlightened DNA. It's like all of those get filled, and then there's this moment that happens. So
it's like one paradigm shifts into another.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel that. So my brain just literally went into 4 different directions at the same
You scattered.
in a good way.
Right.
So I'll share a little story with you about the other day. So, because I want to talk about the combination of Reiki with the light codes. So I was working with someone, and as you know, I've been dabbling in light language for the past, I don't know, since I met you, basically about a year and a half ago. or a year ago. I don't know how long we've known each other. I don't know what time it is. But anyway, so just here and there, but I was doing a Reiki session with someone and I was working on her crown chakra. And it wasn't even a plan, Amanda. All of a sudden I just started whispering light language almost into her crown. So the intention felt like it was that my breath were carrying the vibrations into her. And then I saw the vibrations moving through her body, then her whole body traveling down. And it was so strange because like I said, it wasn't a planned thing. It wasn't like I'm going to do light language now. It just was the next step in what we were doing together. And so I'm curious, do you incorporate light language, like codes, into your Reiki work? I know you mentioned that you're really excited because you're offering your new Reiki level 1 course soon, which you can talk about that. And then, does that relate to light language at all in the way that you present Reiki? Because I know people have many different ways of doing Reiki and teaching Reiki.
Yeah, 100%. And that's so cool that you're incorporating that.
Thank you, Amanda.
It's yeah, so sound therapy plus Reiki, that's where I am now. So I've started in and I have been doing the light codes with my Reiki clients, and now I'm transitioning into, I've got tuning forks. So I'm intuitively drawn to wherever on their body needs a release, or certain codes will, I don't want to say have issue entering the body, but they're the body itself, the energetic body, oftentimes will have its own shadow. So even though the client's consciousness might be like, "Yep, I'm ready. Let's get it tuned. Their bodies will actually fight it." So, I'll go over certain parts of their body, hit the tuning fork, and I can feel that block just go, the vibration just shakes it away. It loosens it up to where the codes are able to penetrate that energetic body. So what's interesting, before I started working with the codes while I was doing Reiki, I would work with clients and I would get to their crown and I could hear in my head their light language. And I knew it wasn't mine because a lot of times it had clicks, or it had some people have like animal sounds almost in their language. So I'd get to their heads and I'd be like, whoa, that's different. So that was always a sign to me that not only were they receiving, because like our consciousness is always doing stuff. Like, we don't have to be aware that our consciousness is working. So that was a sign to me that even though I wasn't actually speaking light codes, like they were receiving my codes and their higher self was transmitting their codes to me. So it's this dual activation of like, okay, I see you higher self, and we're like both working in sync, and the clients just has no clue what's going on other than they're getting Reiki.
That's
so
amazing.
this course that that I am it's now available. It's another back burner thing where I knew when I started doing Reiki that eventually I was going to do my own mode of modality of teaching. So that's the whole point of my course is, I give you the basic foundation materials of Reiki, and I am allowing the individual, the student, to just like, okay, that's cool, thank you for that foundation, but actually my guides are telling me there's a different way to do it.
Yeah.
That my way, I've got this whole other way.
Yeah.
So I want people to come up with whatever that looks like, whether it's if they're doing light language, if they're doing some type of sound therapy. So yeah, I'm super excited to, the more people that are activated, great. The more people that are activated and bring something new, that's a game changer. When these new things are introduced, that's when things get interesting.
I totally agree with you. And I have a similar way to teach Reiki as well. And I think that the time is now to empower our students to believe that they can bring something new to these modalities. And they, again, it's like, it's the more egalitarian version, Amanda, of what we're doing in the world, what we're sharing. It's not bow to the guru. It's not, oh, Amanda, you're so much better than I am. Oh, you know, no, it is, oh, Amanda, I resonate with you. I want to work with you. I'm inspired by you. But it's not giving your power away to Amanda. It's being open to Amanda's teachings. And then again, taking that foundation and then moving into, what does my soul feel? What do my guides say? How can I create something slightly different from this foundation? So I love what you're saying. I think a lot of healers are moving in that direction slowly but surely. And I do also see the importance of there being a number of, we'll say, in the realm of Reiki, for example, there are some more traditionalists who hold the old ways. It's not even that old. I mean, Reiki's only about 100 years old, but still, they hold more of the, let's not add anything new to it. Let's keep it the way it is. We always need those kind of people too, to help the rest of us who kind of want to break the rules a bit or fly away from the molds or the existing formats. So I do honor those people as well, but that's not as much my path. I'm more leaning a bit towards the way of incorporating different things into the Reiki. But I also like teaching my students more of the traditional things as well. So yeah, it's a balance. So in terms of your Reiki course, Amanda, is this all online? Is this in person? Or
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it looks like my trajectory is going. Thanks to the Rona, people are down with it now. I mean, I think everybody's very familiar with Zoom, and so yeah, that's basically how it's going to work. I send out my materials. The student reads through it at their own leisure. I want to do like a bi-monthly or perhaps monthly chat where we, if questions come up, they can ask me. I also want to do group meetings where, 2 or 3 individuals, including myself, can get together and we can talk about different things, different downloads that came in, whatever comments, questions, thoughts. I think that's huge in getting colleagues' opinions and other people's opinions. And, I mean, that's why we have so many mirrors, is to bounce things off of each other. Some of my greatest breakthroughs have been around like-minded people like you, and it's like, oh, yep. Because you're matching my frequency, and all of a sudden then I can see my frequency more clearly. So I think that group component is very important. So yeah, and quite frankly, I don't really know how it's gonna work. I think it's gonna be a little bit different for everybody, and everybody's gonna have a different experience from it, which and I'm gonna learn from it. I'm gonna continue to get better and pull different ideas through. So yeah, I'm excited.
that's so cool. Okay, so this segues nicely. What you just said about we're mirroring for each other, and when we're on similar frequencies, then we can see each other ourselves more clearly. So this leads me to a topic that we have talked about many a time, and it just keeps getting more interesting, I think, the more that we talk about this. So I'm super excited to hear what you have to say. I'm wondering about the topic in the spiritual communities that is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is soulmates and twin flames. If you Google it, you've got a billion people giving a billion different ideas on it. So where I know you and I, we've shifted our thoughts on it over the past year or so. Where are you on this topic now? What is a twin flame? What is a soulmate? And why the heck is this important to know?
Boy. So can we share with the group how synchronistic our stories are? Okay, I'll just do a real brief, and you can like pull in some stuff too. So Anya's Anya's partner, as we were, getting to know each other, has the same exact birthday as me. Which, when she told me that, I was like, whoa, wait, that's 1 out of 365 chance. Like, that's kind of weird. When we were starting to get to know each other, I was with an individual who I thought was my twin flame. And anytime I would be emotionally pulled or distracted, or like in physical pain from that experience, she would just magically call me. I mean, it was like within seconds of me thinking, wow, I'm really struggling right now. Me and my twin aren't together. The universe is ending. And I would get a text from her. So me and Anya are very soul tribe, over soul, like aspects of each other. We're very intertwined. Is that okay that I shared that?
Of course, yeah. Share
Okay.
anything. I trust you.
Okay, so that's why we've been, working with this twin flame soulmate idea
I
for
do
as
want
long
to
as.
say that yes, since the very first time we hung out, I think it was within an hour of meeting that we just started talking about our people, because those relationships mirrored each other too. And I
Yes.
wasn't actually with him at the time. He wasn't really my partner per se, but we were kind of in between, like, should we get back together or not? And then, and the more that we revealed about the people that were on our hearts, it was like the same. I would say something and then you would say, oh, that's for us too. And it got for me to the point where it was almost frightening, because I knew that if I talked to you about it, I would learn something probably that I didn't want to learn, because it has been a very beautiful and also fraught relationship full of really tough lessons. And so actually there was a part of me that was afraid sometimes to talk to you about it, because I'm like, am I ready to go to this next level of healing? Because it was a lot of healing and clearing. So it wasn't always easy, but so yeah. And it's interesting too that we're having this conversation today, because yesterday, and I didn't tell you this yet, but I had made a big shift in consciousness with my relationship with him just yesterday. I mean, life alteringly shifting. So I'm a totally different version of myself today. And I think that in order to have the conversation with you today, it needed to shift yesterday. It was like, that needed to happen first, and then we're talking today. So anyway, I'm just, yeah, please continue. What where are you at with it now? And whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so going back to we're shifting all the time. Every single second, millions of times in a second, we're shifting to different consciousness, different versions of ourselves. The twin flame idea is very interesting, because one of the things me and Anya figured out was there's a certain level of distance, consciously wise, between the two twins, if we're calling them that, and this just for lack of better terms. There seems to be a certain distance, a space in between the two, consciousness wise. And we would often say to each other, oh, if they could just get on my level, right? This idea of like, if they could just if their ceiling could just expand a little bit, then we could be together and it'd be perfect. Like there's so many aspects of this person that are perfect, and it's like, wow, we were meant to be, but there's this lacking. And going back to the ego and the shadow, it felt as sometimes that they could be an anchor, which is a horrible way to think about it, right? And I hate looking at things levels, but what was interesting is one of the things is that their perception of our environment was so deeply profound. They communicated it different, certain words that are used, or certain languages that were used, and it's like, so was that an ego lesson for us? I need to accept that this person is just as expanded and has just a level of consciousness that is comparable to mine. It's just that their perception of it and their aspect and their view going back to that shape, like maybe I'm on the right side and he's on the left side, and their view of the reality is beautiful as well. And
it's just it's such a different perspective that it feels jarring at times. And yet then that core of love that, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I don't know if you felt this way, but when I met this person, it was an instant, overwhelming feeling of love like I had never experienced with any other person in my life, except for maybe Ahmad, the hugging saint, but she's a saint, so that doesn't, that's, but in fact, I mean, the first time that we spent time together, it was about 2 hours where we just roamed the streets at night. Beautiful. And by the end of the 2 hours, we were looking into each other's eyes saying, I love you. I love you. I don't know you, but I love you. And then, and he said something to me, and it was worded. Again, it goes back to that word. He phrased something very deeply spiritual in such a way that we were walking and I literally fell over. My knees gave out and I fell to the ground. And then I was just laying on the ground laughing hysterically. And he's like, are you okay? What's going on? I'm like, because he blew my brain into 1,000 particles. And that love has never stopped. It never will stop. And that, I think, is what I perceive to be the kind of humorous thing from the universe, and that we have all these movies and novels about true love. And for me and this person, when we met, I thought, oh, I finally found the thing that everyone's been looking for. Oh, yay, I won the lottery. And then it slowly became, wait a minute, did I? Because as you said, the perspectives were so different that it seemed like often a clash. So energetically, it's strange. Again, it goes to, how can something be so right and so wrong at the same time? It's like a complete mind.
Yeah. But what you're talking about, that idea of unconditional love and that pull, like it was just this magnetic pull that, I'm, my relationship with my twin has ended, and I've had a lot of healing, of course, to get over that. But it's that pull is still there. It's still very very visceral. And so is that pull necessary to show us that somebody who is so familiar and so comfortable and so safe, and in some sense is so much like us, but they're so different, and I still love them? So like, if I can do that with this person, maybe I can do it with everybody. Maybe I can do it with myself. So
that's the twin flame lesson, Amanda. It's you just nailed it 100%, which is, if I can feel this unconditional love for this being so deeply, even if I never see this person ever again, even if we disagree about everything, even if sometimes I want them so badly to understand the things that I do, but they don't. That love, even though all those things are frustrating, that love never goes away. And so, it's that unconditional love. I mean, I truly don't know if and when I'll ever see this person again, but I know if I did, that it would be such a beautiful, transcendent experience. So, and I think the twin flame experience also opens us up to the complete, if we had any doubts about reincarnation or living after death and all that, the twin flame thing completely cements that wisdom into your being, because you've been with this person in other lifetimes so many times, and you're hanging out with them, and all of a sudden you remember another incarnation and you are living in a different country or even a different planet. I did a reading yesterday about my twin, and the reading was it was about a simultaneous incarnation that we have not on Earth, and I don't know much about cosmic things, so you'll have to enlighten me, Amanda, but this one, we are both in a state of abiding awareness that never goes away. So you could call it like full enlightenment or something like that. In Orion, I don't know, is that a star or a planet or I don't know, but it said, my guide said Orion, that is where we are. And it's and to feel the energy of the incarnation as a healing modality that I can pull into my body. And it was a relief to know that exists, because it partly explains why the pull, I think. Because we know on some level that in this other incarnation we have reached these heights of consciousness together, and so it's like a remembrance or tuning into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you start going up into dimensional energies, a way to look at that would be, here on Earth, we're individualized souls. So how that looks is we're humans and human bodies. But when you start going to expanded consciousness in different dimensions, you could imagine, let's say, the seventh, eighth dimension, where we're actually planets, where you're not a human, you're a planet. Imagine your energy field physically being as large as a planet. So what you could be describing is those two energies, your energy and his energy, could literally be that planet's energy, could literally be the feminine, masculine version holding space for that entire planet. That's one way you could look at it. Yeah.
That's interesting. I never thought about that before so
the pull that you're actually feeling is like a planetary core, like you have to be connected to him because you're holding space for this whole big ball of gaseous energy. Like that pull is real, it's visceral.
Yeah, and then it's interesting too, because with the twin flame dynamic, there's the runner chaser aspect to it. So the story is sometimes twins go long periods of time without speaking because of different circumstances. And so it's fascinating, though, to, again, another twin flame lesson, and we'll move on to a different topic in a minute, but this is so fun, is that, the twin flame teaches you about telepathy too, because my twin lives 3,500 miles away, but often I didn't need to pick up the telephone or send a text to know exactly how he was thinking and feeling, because my higher self could just tell his higher self. And it was this instant communication, to the point where, again, it's, if there were any doubts before about the possibilities of telepathy or about distance healing, sending him energy and then feeling him send me things and back and forth, the twin experience eradicates any doubt, because you just know. So I think it is, for many people, a way of waking up in these times. And again, that label twin flame, maybe it's not the best label to use, because it implies perhaps that there's only one other person that could make you feel so much. And I don't know if that's true. I don't think that is personally true. I think maybe there's a few people, or maybe a small group of people, that you could feel that way with, if your heart is open and you're working on yourself. I think that,
and we've talked about that as well. So that brings like the soulmate idea. So I think that's the twin flame. So if you imagine it, and we've talked about this before, if you let me just kind of go over this one more time, as it's kind of like solidifying in my head. If you think about one being, and just for human brain's sake, let's imagine it as a person. Let's imagine this oversoul, this higher self, as a person. If you imagine that person splitting into, let's say 12 other people, okay, then you've all of a sudden got this soul group. Now you've got a soul group. Let's say that you're number 1 and 12 is your person. So those two could be maybe the twin flame, because those aspects are the furthest frequencies from each other. So maybe that's the twin flame. Well, then you've got all these other aspects, which could be more soulmates. And any one of them could work, so to speak, on planet Earth. But, again, we're always shifting. They're always shifting. So it's the matter of, I know for a fact that I have met soulmates before, because I felt that same pull, I felt that same resonance, but it didn't work out. So my theory is we have to kind of go through, like tick 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 tick, like a dial. We have to go through, and maybe we find our twin flame first. Maybe we find the furthest frequency, we find that one first, we learn all our lessons, and then we go and we find all of these other soulmates, and we're like, that one's close, it's really close, but I'm going to keep looking. And you keep getting closer, like you keep getting closer to that match. And and the numbers could be way off. Maybe there's 12,000 soulmates. I don't know the exact numbers. Maybe everybody has a different number. Maybe there's only one. I don't know. But it's the idea of you have to switch those dials and find out where the frequencies match perfectly. Not perfectly. There's no perfect, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Aligned rather closely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Okay. So I have one kind of big question to ask you, and then we'll start to kind of wrap it up. So in the past few months or weeks, have you had any huge aha moments where your whole world just went and something brand new came in that was unexpected or shocking?
Yes, I have had an epiphany moment. I think it happened for me when I was leaving Ohio. I won't go into it, but I've been through some pretty big life shifts and transitions in the past 6 months. When I finally made the choice to leave Ohio and come out west, it was such a change in energetics, and it was such a again, it was one of those node points where things just started to work. And where when I was in Ohio, it felt like I was competing against myself. It felt like everything I did was just butting heads with my own head, and I wasn't getting anywhere. For me, that was such a big moment of actually coming out here, not just changing locations, but shifting into a completely different version of myself. One of the epiphanies I've had, and this is nothing new, but I've really been thinking about the meaning of life. Like, that's not a big deal, right?
Just that.
I think so I started thinking, well, the meaning of life is your mission. It's why you're put here. It's what you're to do. It's how you are to serve humanity. So there's that aspect of it. But also for me, I think I've come to the decision that there really is no meaning to life, right? Because no matter what happens, again, I'm going to hit those node points, and I'm going to do what I came here to do, regardless of all of those little things that happen. So making the meaning of life your mission is kind of overkill, because like it's going to happen anyways. Right. And people that struggle or want so badly to give their life more meaning, it's like the meaning is in every moment. The meaning is in every now, to just find joy and be happy with whatever you're doing, whether it's sitting in a ditch homeless somewhere, like I don't know, finding just being in the moment and being blissed out and joyful, and knowing that there's really nothing that you have to do, because like you're gonna do it. It's just gonna unfold naturally.
That's such a relief to me, what you're saying.
Yeah, it was a relief to me too, because, and I think that's where I was in Ohio, where I had all of these things I wanted to do, and I saw all of these trajectories in my head of like timelines that, well, I'm not really going to be serving my mission unless I do this or that or this. And when I moved, it was just like, I don't know, do I have to do any of that? Like,
you let yourself off the hook a little bit.
Absolutely. There's no pressure to it. There's no pressure in, I mean, you can do that in your daily life. Like, I used to be very, anytime any client texted me or, anybody reached out, it was like immediately I threw my energy at that person, and I don't do that anymore because I know that if my energy is forced a certain way, I'm not going to get the 100% Amanda, and I'm not going to be able to channel the highest healing frequencies for that person if it's forced. Like I have to allow that to happen when the energies are right. And it goes back again to just being like surrendering to your now moment, and not forcing anything, not making more making anything more meaningful than it has to be. It's just
I love
stuff we
that.
do.
Totally. Yeah. I think as healers and light workers, sometimes we get a bit too mission focused.
Mm,
I mean, it's understandable why we do that because
yeah.
we do have such a passion inside of us to help the world. And at the same time, I think we can get a bit anal with it. Like, oh, So, yeah, I love what you're saying. And actually, yeah, we're such in the same wavelength, sister, because I have had similar thoughts recently in the past couple weeks too about myself, about, I had a thought of maybe I'm going to go move to Florida because it's beautiful there. And I really don't know if I would keep doing the exact work I'm doing here in Florida. And maybe I could just become a farmer. That sounds like I have a passion for being more connected with Mother Gaia. And so if I was a farmer, would I have time to make YouTube videos? Probably not. And would that be the end of the world? No. So it's really a matter of just going with the flow and seeing where life leads. So I love.
Yeah, and I do believe that when you're in alignment with your heart and your higher self, the universe is going to guide you. The
Yes.
universe is going to, put things in front of your face, little carrots, and again, you go back to your intuition. Does that feel good? Does that feel good? Does that feel good? And whatever one you're resonating with more, that's the move to make.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So I'm sure that there's people who right now want to get in touch with you to do a healing session or to just say, hey, I love your work. Thanks for doing what you're doing or whatnot. So how can people find you, Amanda?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I have my website. I do my YouTube stuff. So yeah, and I'm sure you can link all of
I
those.
will link those beautiful things. Yeah, I definitely love your YouTube channel. It's a beautiful space to get inspired. So I really recommend that to everyone checking out her YouTube channel. She makes these beautiful songs, guitar, and she sings light language and just it's heavenly. So please go check that out.
Thank you. And I want to shout out to all the people who comment on my videos. I've got a few people that will comment on every single video, and I am so grateful for those comments. It's so synchronistic. I'll have a bad day, or I'll think to myself, oh, I don't have any time to do this YouTube thing anymore. I'm just not going to write any more music. And right then I'll get an alert, and it'll be somebody's beautiful comment of, wow, my day is different because I listened to that. And it's just this feeling of like, okay, that's why I do this.
Yep.
Get out the guitar, go, record another one. And
Yep.
so, yeah, for anybody who comments, I just so appreciate you. You change every day for me.
Aw, lovely. Okay, so this has been a beautiful, mind-bending conversation as usual, Amanda, and I hope that we can do it again sometime. I always love our connections. So be well, and thanks again for chatting today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bye for now, everyone.